My family abandoned me because of my sister's divorce remorse. Years later, I receive a complete explanation and proof email, so I ruined her life. My family forced me out about 7 years ago. The events were so sudden that I, 29M, had little time to emotionally or financially prepare. I was 22 and couldn't afford an apartment rental. My sister drove everything. My tiny sister Hannah is 37. My relationship with you has never been closed due to our age gap. At 27, she married her 39-year-old boyfriend Pete. Their marriage lasted 3 years. Hannah's suspicions that Pete had an affair with my friend led to their divorce after 3 years. I stayed with my parents after college to save money before moving out. Work had just begun. My parents approved after my sister filed for divorce. She cried when she got home, uncontrollably. She announced her divorce, citing 6 months of infidelity by her husband. After that, she accused me of introducing my friend to him. Pete, a qualified dietitian, offered to help my 28-year-old acquaintance Emily gain weight. I introduced her to Pete, who was having an affair with my sister. Despite our lack of closeness, I believed Emily was a respectable woman who would never sleep with a married man, so I was surprised. In addition, Pete's deception was shocking. I couldn't believe he cheated on Hannah because he was so smitten with her. My parents never doubted her, even though she had no proof of his cheating. No matter who was correct, they would still choose their daughter over their son-in-law, so I won't blame them for trusting her. I didn't understand why they removed me so soon on Hannah's word. She threw a fit and barged in, even though I did it. I convinced my parents to kick me out after introducing Emily to Pete. My folks seemed to agree with her that I ruined her marriage. I tried to convince my parents to let me go, but they ignored me and threatened to kick me out. I was mad. I had no idea what to do after losing my home and family in one day. After crying on the pavement with all my possessions for almost an hour, I forced myself to go to a friend's house for the night. I wasted several days attempting to contact them daily without success. My friend gladly let me remain at his house until I could find my own personal flat. My parents already believed I was entirely wrong about the divorce. It was strange because my parents had explicitly condemned my behavior before expelling me, not because I cheated on Pete. My mom threatened to call the police if I continued seeing them since they blocked my number. Finally, it sank me they were taking this seriously and holding me accountable for what happened. Since my sister has always been the favorite, I wasn't surprised. I hated being an only child since my parents didn't want another, but I had no idea my quiet would hurt, eventually lead to something huge. I suppose I should have expected it, but I doubt anyone in my situation could have. My parents and Hannah had cut off all communication with me, so I spent the next 2 weeks trying to figure out what happened. I don't understand why Pete prevented me from communicating. Hannah and Pete had left the house and were staying with their parents, so I couldn't find him either. Last, I turned to Emily. Because I couldn't reach anyone else, hope for finding out. Even though Emily and I weren't close, I had to act. I merely wanted to meet with her to explain things. She vehemently denied Hannah's affair claims when I asked for confirmation. I believed her narrative. Emily said all her encounters with Pete were business-related. There was no friction between them, so she wondered why Hannah would criticize her. She explained that she had been committed for a while, a couple of years, and planned to marry in a few months. She convinced me better than Hannah and showed me photographs. Despite the absence of evidence, I believed Hannah lied about the divorce's cause. I couldn't return to my family without proof. Even though my family hurt me, I missed them and wanted to return home. However, I recovered and resumed my life. Finding work and housing provided me purpose and distracted me from my issues. I had to pay bills on top of everything else, making it more practical, coping than moaning. Though my family attempted to dissuade me, I knew I had to keep going. Things improved for me eventually. I recently got engaged to my 2-year relationship and downsized from my tight apartment to a larger one. Our engagement post changed everything for me. I got a job days later. I received a surprise email with documents that documented Hannah's divorce and provided all the answers I needed. Although she usually posted us on Instagram, my fiancée Liza 30F put the engagement photo on her Facebook profile, where she had a larger following. The post was public, thus it was seen widely. Pete, my ex-brother-in-law, is one. My fiancé met him at a medical conference a few years ago and added him on Facebook, where he found me. Realizing the world is small for the first time made me happy. Instead of texting me on social media, he sent me an anonymous email a few days later. He wanted to avoid appearing bitter and unmoved after his divorce a few years before. He then said he did this to avoid embarrassment. Plus, he felt embarrassed and self-conscious about approaching me again about a long-ago incident, because he blocked me. The email told the complete situation and provided documentation from 7 years ago. I couldn't believe my eyes. My sister cheated on Pete, despite her claims. Contrary to what she accused Pete of, she had an affair with one of my friends, making that lie even more intriguing. Never would have thought they were dating if not for my 28-year-old pal Frank, a grocery store cashier near Hannah's house. I believe Pete found out even though they kept it a secret. After Pete confronted Hannah, she blamed me for everything. She stated it was my fault because I brought her to Frank and told her he needed her help as a vocalist, and she was already good. They fell in love without recognizing it when she offered to help. She claimed I helped them hide the truth for a long time. Of course, it was a sham, and I had no idea Frank and Hannah were dating. After realizing the truth, he blocked my family in wrath. Looking back, he understands this was dumb, but he was furious and hadn't considered his actions. He disclosed everything to me in person to protect his identity from the email, but I figured it out. He presented emails from my sister and Frank in which they boasted about fooling Pete, declared their love, and arranged their next rendezvous, even though few know her middle name. She signed off on emails with it, so she couldn't dispute anything. Her body was dead in my palms. I saw Pete in Liza's Facebook friends and called him. My intuition told me it was related to social media. I then confirmed Pete was the email sender. He told me about Hannah's confession to her family at our recent encounter from Emily, who had met him years before. I was stunned when I realized that I could have proven my innocence long ago had I not encouraged her not to tell Pete my side of the tale. Hating myself for doing that. So they met a few years ago, and she asked him about divorce. After talking, he learned what Hannah told us. He admitted he wanted to tell me the truth in a conversation but was too self-conscious. If Pete hadn't been so ashamed, my life would have been easy. After being upset with him, I forgave him since he would help me kill my sister. Hannah lied to my parents for financial help after her divorce. She even made me a scapegoat, knowing I would reveal the truth after one conversation with Emily. Not understanding how someone could be so selfish, even when they were my blood relatives. She probably didn't correct the record either, and my parents undoubtedly swallowed her divorce lies. She knew our parents would find out she cheated, so she couldn't risk major punishment. I was going to use it to destroy her life like she had done mine years earlier. It had finally come out, which was sad. Since I hadn't seen my family in 7 years, I didn't know if they were still living there. I was relieved to learn from a former neighbor that Hannah was still living with them, so I called her before I arrived. I wasn't surprised because Hannah has always been a couch potato. Dislikes job. She would want to live with her elderly parents and have them do all her duties. It was 2 days ago. We unexpectedly visited their residence with Pete. We ran in as soon as my mom answered the door, barely giving her time to process. Hannah and my dad were in the living room, so we were back together as a happy family. When we entered, their faces went glum. I swiftly replied, saying my dad he could do anything as long as he read the papers we'd give the police before threatening to call the police if we didn't leave his house. Hannah, who looked like she was going to puke, excused herself to go to her room because my parents were confused. I thought she was fleeing, but that was meaningless. Pete showed Frank and Hannah's divorce papers and emails, and I spoke the truth. Pete also informed my parents that my high school teacher Hannah had to sell our family relic, my grandmother's diamond ring, to pay him the settlement. That was the cherry on top for my parents, who were scared by what we told them. We all watched the drama unfold. My dad wanted to know what occurred, and Hannah kept attempting to tell him. Mask the truth. She kept lying, so my dad kicked her out. We were told to leave their house immediately after he gave her his luggage. My sister begged and cried at my parents to let her back in, just like I had done years earlier, and I left with Pete without being reminded. I thought this was perfect karma. Since then, my sister visited my residence a few hours ago, urging my parents and I repair our connection quickly. Despite not knowing how she found me, I told her I no longer knew her. Since she had destroyed my life, we were equal. I repaid the favor. After I said that, she cried and called me a monster, so she must have lost all pride. I didn't care about her drama, so I closed the door behind her while she cried furiously. I listened to music with my headphones so my girlfriend Liza wouldn't be interrupted while she studied. Hannah left us alone, but she left a note and mark on my door to remind me that I was a monster out for revenge. I don't feel sorry for myself or think I did anything wrong, but Hannah seemed to think I was the bad guy. Like she did to me years ago, I told her the truth while she lied and put me under the bus. I did nothing else. All decided? For 7 years after she blamed me for her divorce, AITA, you expelled my sister and damaged her life. Update 1. Hannah still annoys me a week after being kicked out. She called me 14 times today before stopping, and I had to threaten her with police arrest. How she got my address and phone number doesn't important right now. What matters is that she did. I don't think a school teacher's wage isn't enough to live on, and Hannah is upset that she has to find a place to live and pay for her own energy, groceries, and rent, because our parents expelled her, so I don't feel sorry for her. But she's trying. I feel sorry for her. Please note that I blocked her number many times. Blocking her isn't helping because she's including me in conference calls with her friends. My parents stink compared to Hannah. They found me on Facebook and saw my engagement post. They want to spend time with me again and perhaps attend my wedding. They haven't apologized, but I don't understand why they believe I should welcome them to my wedding, which is so significant to me. I don't know where these folks have the audacity to say such stuff, therefore I'm not responding. Liza and I have read their texts extensively since they are not serious right now. For them. Sake, everything's sad. Version 2. Hannah returned to my house yesterday after I threatened to report her for harassment. She put herself on the hood before I could get in my car to go to work and wouldn't move until I called her. It was driving me crazy, so I called the police. Her sad girl act failed, and she was hauled away despite her shouting and sobbing and trying to blame me. Not wanting this tiny event to ruin my day, I immediately charged her. I went to work. I was also right that my parents would rescue her since they loved her. My parents apologized in a long text after helping her. Their honest mistake from almost a decade ago, and told me I was too hard on them. Seeing my sister and parents hurt me for no reason made it funnier. They knew I had nowhere else to go and were harsh when they sent me out onto the street. Now that I can treat them equally, I don't need to be lenient. I replied to my parents' SMS saying they shouldn't have tried to control my powers 7 years ago and to stop fooling themselves. I'll block them soon. I haven't checked my stuff. Messages lately. I hope I can put this family behind me by then. Learned my parents had written me another long note. Liza and I laughed as we read this. The funniest thing I've ever read. I assume those sad folks don't realize their words and deeds don't affect me. I laugh at their self-awareness and empathy deficit. It appears they still consider a US family they've let Hannah back into their house and believe their children should have another chance. Like I'd ever be wrong, in addition to rehoming my sister. They wanted Liza and me to come over for dinner soon so we could have a civilized debate before the wedding and resolve things. They were brave to expect an invitation to my wedding. We laughed at their foolishness, and I quickly wrote back to say I didn't want their invitations and was happy with my 7-year separation. They showed me I was better off without them, and I'm forever grateful. They could play happy family with my sister without my help, and I didn't want their forgiveness either. After that last text, I blocked them completely since I was sick of their pranks. I left because I was done. Unfortunately, I won't budge. They'll try to contact me again soon. I'm happy with Liza as my family. My sister and parents have never placed themselves first, and I doubt they ever will. Let me know if they alter their minds. They will consult with my attorney. I promise.